Through Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen.
You may be seated. This honorable House now resume its sitting. It is indeed a great honor and pleasure to welcome you all to the sitting of the Honorable House of Representatives on Tuesday, April 30th, 2024. I would like to extend special welcome to those who are joining us online via the various social media platforms and the PBCJ live stream. We also want to welcome those persons visiting on behalf of Mr. Member Paulwell, Kingston East and Port Royal, and also to Honorable Edmund Bartlett, member from East Central St. James, for those who are in the audience visiting on behalf of you. Also, it is our esteemed pleasure to welcome Miss Una Clark, former City Council member for New York, and Miss Yvette Clark, Congresswoman, and her husband to our Parliament today. We do hope that you will find this sitting intriguing and enjoyable today. With that being said, call of the roll.
Mrs. Holness, Mr. Bartlett, Mr. Holness, Dr. Clark, Dr. Chang, Ms. Grange, Mrs. Williams, Mrs. Malahoo-Fort, Dr. Tufton, Mr. Mackenzie, Mr. Chuck, Mr. Vaz, Mr. Charles Jr., Mr. Green, Dr. Chang, Mr. Morgan, Mr. Hutchinson, Mr. Terrelong, Ms. Smith, Dr. Dunn, Mrs. Cuthbert Flynn, Mr. Main, Mr. Davis, Mr. Witter, Mr. Brown, Dr. Brownberg, Dr. Charles, Mr. Chin, Mr. Cousins, Ms. Crawford, Ms. Daly, Ms. Davis, Mr. Golding, Mr. Graham, Dr. Guy, Ms. Hamilton, Ms. Hannah, Mr. Enriquez, Mr. Henry, Mr. Hilton, Mr. Jackson, Mr. Lawrence, Ms. Lee, Mr. Miller, Mr. Montague, Ms. Morrison, Mrs. Nita Garvey, Mr. Paulwell, Dr. Dunn, Mr. Phillips, Dr. Phillips, Mr. Robertson, Mr. Robinson, Mr. Samuda, Mr. Shaw, Mr. Siblis, Mr. Slowly, Mrs. Vaz, Mr. Warmington, Mr. Wheatley, Mr. Williams, Mr. Wilson, Mr. Wright, Mr. Miller. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Statement by ministers.
Mr. Speaker, I'd like to join with you in welcoming members to today's sitting and also to welcome the members in the gallery and the number of representatives from the two constituencies that I know are here. Others are on their way. I want to also, Madam Speaker, indicate that today, Mr. Speaker, that today we commence the sectoral debates, and we intend to carry this through for the rest of the first half of this session of the House, and then we would continue with the private members' motions and other businesses that the House would have. But that the essential activities would be the debates by the various ministers and the spokespersons from the opposition. Mr. Speaker, is it not intended to have any statements by ministers today, as in keeping, of course, with the tradition of enabling fulsome debates to ensue? So I ask that you carry through the agenda as indicated. May it please you, sir.
Announcement.
Laid on the table of the House today are the following: annual report and audited financial statements of the Human Employment and Resource Training National Service Training Agency Trust for the financial year 2022-2023. The National Housing Trust Housing Benefits Special Selection Silver Sun Housing Development Order 2024 under the National Housing Trust Act.
Bills brought before the Senate, from the Senate. Petitions, papers, report from committees, notices of motion given orally.
Mr. Speaker, I beg to give notice that at the next meeting of the House, I will move the following motion. Be it resolved that the National Housing Trust, Housing Benefits, Silver Sun Housing Development Order 2024, under the National Housing Trust Act, which was laid on the table of the House on the 30th day of April 2024, be referred to the Regulations Committee of the House of Representatives for consideration and report. Mr. Speaker, I further beg to give notice that at a later stage today, I will move for the suspension of the standing orders to allow me to take the motion. Mr. Speaker, I beg to give notice that at the next meeting of the House, I will move. Be it resolved that this Honorable House of Representatives approve the plans and programs being pursued by the government in respect of ministries which were not included in the debate on the Appropriations Bill, and further approve the policy projections as announced for the financial year 2024 to 2025. Mr. Speaker, I further give notice that at a later stage today, I will move for the suspension of the standing orders to enable me to take this motion. May it please you, Mr. Speaker.
Questions and answers to questions. Motion that may be made at the commencement of public business requiring notice. Motion relating to sitting of the House. Motions for leave to introduce bills. Presentation of bills without leave of the House first obtained. Public business.
Mr. Speaker, I beg to move for the suspension of the standing orders to enable me to take the motion, notice of which I gave earlier in respect of the National Housing Trust Housing Benefits Silver Sun Housing Development Order 2024.
The request is on the floor. Those in favor? Those against? The ayes have it. You may.
Mr. Speaker, I beg to move that the motion be approved.
As is requested, those in favor? Those against, the ayes have it.
Mr. Speaker, I now move for the suspension of the standing orders to enable me to take the motion, notice of which I gave earlier, in respect of the sectoral debate and its commencement.
Question is before us. Those in favor? Those against? The ayes have it.
Mr. Speaker, I beg to move for the approval of the motion.
The request is on the floor. Those in favor? Those against? The ayes have it.
Mr. Speaker, as indicated earlier, the sectoral debate will commence today, and there will be two speakers. The Leader of Government Business and member for East Central St. James, who will open the debate and will be followed by the member from Kingston, East and Port Royal, and the opposition leader of the House. Mr. Speaker, distinguished members of Parliament, esteemed guests, yeah. Yes. Next round. Mr. Speaker, distinguished members of Parliament, esteemed guests in the gallery and fellow Jamaicans, it's a great honor that I address you in this honorable house for the 35th time as a member of Parliament. And Mr. Speaker, while I mentioned 35 years in this house, there was 4 years in the other place. In addition to that, there are members here on this side who have exceeded that time in this honorable house, one of whom is in the chamber now, the member from Clarendon Central, the Honorable Mike Henry, who has done over 40 years. Another member, the member from North Central St. Andrew, he has also done over 40 years. But, Mr. Speaker, there is another member in this House who has done 35 years as well, and little spoken of, but is a very effective member of Parliament, and he continues to win every time, J.C. Hutchinson from Northwestern.
Minister. 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 Minister,
So,
please, turn the other mic off. Yeah, thanks. Go ahead.
Okay, this is enough. So, Mr. Speaker, I use the opportunity as I make that reference to recall also that another member on that side has actually reached the 30 threshold, the member from East Central St. Andrew, who isn't here, a former leader of the opposition and a former Minister of Finance. And I'd like to make reference to that milestone as well. So, Mr. Speaker, I stand to share the remarkable progress we have achieved in the tourism sector over the past year. Through innovative strategies, we have ensured that every Jamaican rightfully takes pride in and directly benefits from the prosperity of our flourishing industry. As a public servant, our collective goal is to uplift our people and enhance our nation. I am proud to lead a ministry that is pivotal in advancing these efforts under this government of Andrew Holness. I express my gratitude, therefore, to him, the Most Honorable Prime Minister himself, Andrew Holness, whose unwavering commitment has set the stage for advancing our industry amidst the evolving global landscape. Mr. Speaker, I did have a line here for Madam Speaker, which I will convey to her through you. Mr. Speaker, I wish for you to convey to Madam Speaker that I want to thank her for her unwavering resolve and profound dedication to this honorable House. Indeed, she has exemplified exceptional leadership while steering our demanding Parliament with tremendous grace and fortitude. And I want you to take credit to Mr. Speaker for the work that you do as the Deputy Speaker of this House and the way in which you've managed our affairs while she is not able to preside. So as I continue serving as Minister of Tourism, I thank all who have collaborated with my ministry in overcoming the challenges and seize the opportunities within the sector. And in this context, I want to refer specifically to my permanent secretary of 12 years, Ms. Jennifer Griffith, CD, who has been an outstanding permanent secretary and a great support in achieving the results that we talk of each year. I see in the gallery the president of the JHTA, and I want to make reference to him and the JHTA and the work that they have done to enable the industry to grow through difficult periods as we have. I also acknowledge the invaluable contribution of the entire team within the ministry, including the chairman of my boards and the members of the boards, the executive directors of the various agencies, and all the participants and players who together have been instrumental in enabling us to achieve the goals that we have set, our 5x5x5. To my constituents in East Central St. James, I am grateful for your unwavering support. I remain committed to advancing the interests of that great constituency of East Central St. James. Mr. Speaker, I will have more to say about East Central St. James in my next, so as to ensure that we keep within the time that we are allotted. The bipartisan support that we have been able to forge on both sides of the House has been heartening as we work towards a compassionate goal of building our Jamaican society. And I want in this context to refer to the opposition spokesperson on tourism, whose diligence and encouragement and engagement I have found to be of great value over the period. Mr. Speaker, I am privileged to serve as leader of government business in this honorable House. And I really want to thank the Prime Minister for the confidence that he has displayed in me, and more so for giving me a deputy House leader who is competent, efficient, and always present. And the truth is, Mr. Speaker, that we couldn't achieve half what we have done without the teamwork between the member from St. Catherine Central and Minister of Culture and myself. And we work in many places together, and for a long time too. Yeah. On a personal note, Mr. Speaker, I'm grateful for the support of my family, especially my wife, Carmen, whose encouragement empowers me to serve with dedication. Mr. Speaker, we have the joy, the pleasure, and the blessing of celebrating in February our 50th wedding anniversary. And I know that with time, with His grace and His blessings, we will get on to other milestones that will be able to not only give to our children and grandchildren the sense of what family life is all about, but to enable them to contribute to the building of their communities and the world. Finally, I draw strength and divine blessings from the Almighty Himself, and I remain dedicated to serving the people of this blessed land of ours. I earnestly pray for His ongoing guidance in all my endeavors to enhance not only my personal well-being, but certainly to enable us as a team, as a country, as a people, to provide quality service to each other and to the global community that we're a part of. Mr. Speaker, today's address is a testament to our unwavering commitment to the welfare of all individuals who contribute tirelessly to our tourism industry. You know, and I wanted to do this one, especially this year, Mr. Speaker, because there's a lot of misunderstandings out there in terms of the industry itself, of tourism, and what it does and contributes to the ordinary Jamaican, to the entrepreneurs, to the professionals, and indeed to the entire nation as a whole. And the temptation is always, Mr. Speaker, for us to see tourism as an enclave and something for the big man. And I deliberately say that today, the big man. Today I want to speak to what tourism really means to every man in this country and everywhere. So the tourism industry and its associated public bodies, as well as private enterprises, are dedicated to cultivating a world-class destination that advances our people and sets new benchmarks for excellence in our industry. Our leadership in innovation within the tourism sector continues to yield record-breaking achievements year after year. As we step into 2024, we embrace the ethos of even more in 24. Recognizing, of course, the transformative power of Jamaica's tourism industry. The interconnected web of tourism value chain is not just a beacon of hope, but a powerful force that fosters positive change and uplifts the lives of the Jamaican people and local businesses. In our pursuits of a more resilient, inclusive, and equitable tourism industry, we have adopted a comprehensive approach to enhancing the welfare of our workers. This, Mr. Speaker, includes strengthening tourism linkages, fostering training, development, and innovation, implementing the tourism workers' pension scheme, and addressing social housing needs. These initiatives clearly demonstrate that our commitment is strong to the well-being of our workers, and I'll have more to say on that a little later on in the presentation. Madam Speaker, our initiative reflects the steadfast dedication, Mr. Speaker, I beg your pardon, the dedication of our government to the welfare of our people and the advancement of their prosperity. Together, we are charting a course towards lasting progress and prosperity and the well-being of our citizens are taking precedence in all our efforts. Mr. Speaker, tourism is the backbone of the Jamaican economy, and it is our responsibility to ensure its long-term economic viability and sustainability. We must prioritize policies and programs that support Jamaicans, who are the backbone of this industry. The theme for today's presentation is Tourism Gives Even More in 24. And this theme, Mr. Speaker, is not just a catchy slogan. It is a commitment by the government of Jamaica and the Ministry of Tourism and its public bodies to enhance the lives of all Jamaicans through people-centric initiatives. Therefore, we must strive to ensure that every Jamaican feels the positive impact of tourism success, and not just a few, but the entire country. This is not a difficult task, really, given the wide-ranging impact of tourism. It provides employment opportunities for countless families. And I thought about it a little bit and asked, what does it really require to satisfy one tourist? One. And the answer came back that there are more than 75 discrete activities by varying skill sets and different types of individuals to enable one tourist to be satisfied. So what it does, in fact, it says that if you bring 4 million visitors to the country, as we did, it takes 4 million times 75 activities to satisfy that group that come here. Think about it for a country with 2.9 million people. And then you will appreciate the breadth and the width and the depth of tourism's penetration throughout the economy and the communities. So, Mr. Speaker, we are building a strong foundation and have already implemented programs that train our youth for tourism jobs, initiatives that support small businesses, policies that encourage locally sourced goods, and a focus on sustainable practices that protect our environment, the very thing, indeed, that attracts visitors to our country. However, Mr. Speaker, there is still much work to be done, and we will continue to thrive and strive and spread the wealth created by tourism. When tourism dollars reach local businesses and residents, it creates a more equitable economy, leading to a strong Jamaica where opportunities are accessible to everyone. Mr. Speaker, the industry has enjoyed a record-breaking year, surpassing all industry experts' expectations. However, before delving into our achievements and plans for the forthcoming financial year, let me briefly give an overview of the global state of affairs, which we are paying very close attention to. And I just wanted to say that because I know that there are headwinds and that there are global situations that are tending to point to certain disruptions. And the good thing about tourism is that we are not unaccustomed to disruptions and that we thrive on building resilience to overcome disruptions. So we see the global economy characterized by its dynamism and complexity, presenting both challenges and opportunities. Overall, while the global economy shows resilience, inflation and geopolitical issues pose risk to economic stability and may temper travel demands by affecting consumer confidence and spending patterns. Inflationary pressures and geopolitical uncertainties are common threads across our key markets, the United States, Canada, and the United Kingdom, as well as other source markets. And this underscores the need, therefore, for cautious monitoring and adaptive strategies by us in the tourism sector. In the local scene, whilst we are cognizant of the headwinds, allow me to provide this esteemed House with an update on Jamaica's exceptional performance during the past financial year. The tourism industry has maintained a remarkable post-COVID-19 pandemic rebound in 2023. And the good news, Mr. Speaker, is that we no longer talk about 2019. We no longer talk about pre-COVID as benchmarks. We are now operating a new benchmark, 2023. Jamaica's pioneering role in various aspects of the tourism industry has significantly influenced the global perception of our destination, establishing it as a top choice for visitors worldwide. I'm thrilled to announce that tourism is experiencing an unprecedented surge, surpassing all projections outlined in the previous fiscal year. Madam Speaker, Mr. Speaker, our key markets demonstrated strong performance. The U.S. maintained a majority stake in the overall market of some 74%, and that, Mr. Speaker, while I make reference to it, is not the pristine and what I call protean condition for us. No market should have that percentage share in your space. And this you will hear us talk a little later on about the new markets that we're going into and where we're looking to find the added 5 million that we want after we've achieved the first 5 million. So the Canadian market is growing and has shown remarkable improvement in that regard. It grew, in fact, by 38.6% and now accounts for 12.9% of the market, which is very good for us because before it was just about 10% before COVID. It's now 12.9%, and that's very useful. What has happened, however, is that some of the other markets have shrunken, and we will have to go back to build them and to get them stronger. Whilst I make the point about it is not always a healthy thing for one single market to dominate so heavily in market share, I make the point, however, that a strong, rich, and powerful market must always play a critical role in securing the stability of your destination. So, Madam and Mr. Speaker, stopover arrivals for last year was 2.96 million, reflecting a 9.4 increase, while cruise was 1.34 million and up by 9% from the previous period in 2022-23. Preliminary gross earnings, Mr. Speaker, was 4.38 billion, and I want to make a point about that, because even at 9.6% ahead of last year, 4.38 billion is the largest revenue flow from tourism in the history of the tourism industry in Jamaica. And just to break out so that we understand the impact of that. The impact of that has been that several of our communities that were reeling from COVID as a result of this performance are now bustling centers of commerce and activity again and are providing more jobs and more jobs. And you know, Mr. Speaker, just to show that that growth was not a flash in the pan for the year, 2024 began with a bang. And the first 3 months of 2024, we have already cleared 1.34 million visitors, earning $1.27 billion for Jamaica. And that represents, of course, 788,000 stopovers, or 7.4% increase. Cruise has come back, 554,560 cruisers, representing a 16.1% increase over the corresponding 3 months last year. And I tell you that this year we had established 5 by 5 as our mantra. You remember the KPI we set up? And that 5 by 5 should be achieved in 25? Well, I have news for you. When we finish this year, it will be 5 by 4. It will be 5 by 4 by 5. Meaning to say 5 million visitors, $5 billion earned in 4 years. So further estimates, Mr. Speaker, for just a deeper and better understanding now of what those numbers that I just gave you represent in terms of revenue flows now into Jamaica. Because they say, all right, fine, these big US dollars that we talk about of 4 billion and so, how much of that really comes to us and how does it translate into earnings in our consolidated fund? Well, the TEF fees, you know, the $20 per head, provided $59.2 million US dollars last year, or 9.2 billion Jamaican dollars. Our departure tax, 103.5 million US, or 16 billion Jamaican dollars. Airport improvement fees, 4.6 billion. Airline passenger levy, 9.2 billion. Passengers fees and charges, 11 billion. GAT, which is the room tax, 3.6 billion. A total direct revenue flow straight into the Consol Fund of 345.8 million US dollars, or 53.6 billion Jamaican dollars. So, Mr. Speaker, that 53.6 billion is direct into the government revenues, but it does not include the many billions that flow from GCT, because tourism is the most consumption-driven activity on planet Earth. That's all people do. They travel to consume and consume. And at every point of consumption, they pay a tax. And some people didn't quite understand how the revenue flows could be so high, and we didn't increase the taxation. And you know, and what they didn't get, you know, that some people didn't understand how the revenue flows could be so high, and we didn't increase the taxation. And what they don't seem to get is that when we bring 4.2 million tourists, we have just added to the market size of Jamaica. And the consumption pattern of the tourists, it's 3 to 5 times that of the local. So the propensity to consume, nice economic term, of the tourists drives up the consumption, and therefore the increase in revenue flows, and they don't understand that. But we're going to do more, because when we bring 5 million next year, watch how the revenues are going to move up. So we saw progressive growth, and I just wanted to indicate in this whole process also, revenue flows that generated just from our airports. Because people don't get it sometimes that airports are driven totally, almost 90% of the airport traffic is tourists. And that the revenue that flows into the airports are driven by the tourists. And just to let you know that Kingston and Montego Bay naturally saw impressive growth, both airports. And collectively, they generated 200 million US dollars, or 30 billion Jamaican dollars. In the process, they employed just Sangsters International alone, not Kingston, employed 7,000 people. One airport employed 7,000 people. Oh, the member for the constituency says 8,000. I will be corrected with that one because it tells us even better news, because perhaps some of those people who are not directly employed but are involved in concessions and so on and so forth are also part of that employment stream. So what we're saying then, Mr. Speaker, is that as the industry grows and as it expands, it brings with it benefits and employment for all people of every area. So we are also linking micro and small farmers directly into the buying process. And we have many farmers across the country supplying directly and indirectly our tourism industry with tons of fruits, vegetables, and meat. Our agri-linkages exchange platform that you heard me talk about, Alex, connected over 1,100 small farmers. Now, this is very important that the Alex platform, and this is not the big farmers, you know. This is not the Separads who are out there. This is not the Grace Kennedys who are out there. This is not the dairy farmers. This is not the Surge Islands. You know, this is not the big poultry producers. This is the ordinary small farmer who has half an acre to 5 acres. And we were able to connect 1,100 of them. Nearly 300 buyers have already sold 1 billion Jamaican dollars to the hotel industry. Never happened before. And they say that the Andrew Holness administration is not for little people. And they say tourism is not for little people. So we are upskilling and certifying thousands of tourism workers and high school students through free programs offered by our Jamaica Center for Tourism Innovation. And when I founded that in 2017, it was a key part of the strategy to change the labor market arrangements in tourism. And those who talk about the type of salaries that may be given, oh yes, and we discussed that. And those who talk about the arrangements in terms of contracts and so on, yes, we are addressing that. But the most critical element that must be addressed is the capacity of the worker to provide greater levels of innovation on the job and to be able to give a higher level of productivity. And that's what the Jamaica Center for Tourism Innovation is all about. What we have done, Mr. Speaker, is that we have gone into the hotels where competent workers exist but are not certified. And because they are not certified, their level of advancement in the first area is limited. We have gone in there and we see wonderful cooks, great cooks who are doing a great job, but can't become sous chefs because they're not certified. And the Jamaica Center for Tourism Innovation have gone in with the American Hotel and Lodging Institute and the American Culinary Foundation and have certified these, and we have 15,000 workers who are now certified in various areas, certified supervisors and so on. But we didn't stop there. We realized that to change the market, the labor market arrangement, we have to start further down the line. We have to start in the schools. And so we partner with the Ministry of Education, and we have the HTM program, the hotel training program, that now offers an associate degree in hotel management and customer service. So we are able to train at the high school level for entry into the tourism industry, qualified and certified workers. You will understand what that will mean, because when that happens, they can start at minimum wage. That's the transformation we're talking about. So, Mr. Speaker, we went further. And we said, but the worker needs a social safety net. And in 2010, Mr. Speaker, my permanent secretary is here because she and I were together at the time. When every Christmas period we go to the airports to have breakfast with the workers at the airport who have to serve, and they're the first point of entry, what we call in marketing the moment of truth. Yes. That's when the product meets the customer for the first time. Right. And so we go every Christmas around that time, start of the winter season, to have breakfast with them and to show appreciation for their work. And I was at Norman Manley Airport and I saw this old man struggling with 5 suitcases coming out of customs. And I looked at him and I said, hello, how old are you? He said, 78. And I said, how long you been doing this? He said, 45 years. And I said to him, why are you still doing this? He said, well, Minister, if I don't do this, I can't eat. And I said to my PS then, PS, something is wrong with that picture. We are going to deal with it. And that's how the earth-breaking, innovative tourism workers' pension scheme was born. And, Mr. Speaker, I give credit where credit is due at all times. No. What Wickham did, no. And I give credit where credit is due. You know that. And during my sabbatical, you know, my 4 years interregnum, to the credit of the then Minister Wickham, and my PS, of course, we continue the work. But as the good work always stated, it's not well begun, it's well done. And he who started the work must finish the work. And so we are delighted. Good work was done with good people like Daisy Cook and a number of others. But the vision and the mission had to find the right place for its conclusion. And it took us a year and a half after, 2016 into 17, to get the legislation. And then we went through all the process. And then came COVID. We wanted to start the pension scheme in 2019. And then came COVID, and we had to push it back. But you know, what is a feature of it that has caught the world? And everywhere in the world we go, people talk about it, and they want the model from Jamaica. Because we have a component of this for what we call the augmented contributor. And that contributor is somebody who is 59 years old when he's joined the scheme. only have 6 years of contribution. But at the end of that 6 years, he gets a pension as though he was contributing from his age 18. And that is because the government, this Andrew Holness government, put $1 billion Jamaican dollar in the fund so that people who are 59 years old and join can get a benefit. Today, I'm proud to let you know that 9,447 persons have registered so far, and they have saved in the process $1.2 billion. When added to the $1 billion that we put and the interest that has accrued as a result of good management, we are now $3 billion in the fund. What that means is not just now a pool of funds for the workers, but what we have built and are building now with the potential of 300,000 to 500,000 members, because this is the only pension scheme where it's not confined to a single skill set, or a company. But anyone who contributes more than 30% of his labor and his effort to tourism is qualified to be a member of this scheme. So we have pensioners coming now out of the airport and port workers, and we have self-employed now, like our craft vendors, like our taxi drivers and our juta drivers. Yes? Like the people who do the rafting on the Rio Grande, the raftsmen, the rafters, the fishermen who catch fish and sell to tourism can qualify. This is the most comprehensive pension plan that is anywhere in Jamaica and arguably the tourism world. So I think the leader of the opposition will appreciate this as the spokesman on finance. That the potential, therefore, of this to create a pool of domestic savings, the size of which the region perhaps has never seen, will give Jamaica that ability now for us to convert domestic savings into investment. And that's the essence of growth. That's the essence of growth. Because now we won't have to go and borrow from external and then the money leave Jamaica to go pay back. There will be a large enough pool of funds, affordable funds, that can build roads, build school, build hospital, and build many other things. So the vision is not just a vision that is about the tourism worker per se. It's a vision of tourism making a seminal contribution to economic growth and development. So the next element of interest for us as we talk about the worker is housing. And people talk and they criticize all the years. But none has ever taken the step to secure affordable housing for tourism workers. And we started out, and give credit to former Prime Minister Bruce Golding, because he was the first one who said, Minister, I want you to take $1 billion from the Tourism Enhancement Fund to start looking after the little communities where tourism workers live. See Dr. Chang here? That's how Flanker got fixed up. That's how Norwood got fixed up. That's how Lilliput got fixed up. That's how Whitehall got fixed up over in Negril. Bel Air got fixed up. And now we have a program where 535 families in Grange Pen have their communities spruced up. Running water, macadamized roads, what the former, the minister over here, what do you call it? Carpet? Carpet. Now have carpet. Have sewage system. And more importantly, electrification. Because when we went into the community, when you see the cobweb of little wires all over the place, a disaster ready to happen. And we went in and we cleaned it up. And we built a proper pole and thing for them. But more importantly, those 535 families were under something called a Providence scheme. You remember? Providence Society. And I'm not going any further there. I'm not going any further there. Because when we check out, people pay for a lot and have no title and have no... We're not saying anything more. Nothing more. And when they're ready to move and to build, they can't because nobody can account for it. So the Tourism Enhancement Fund bought the land from Finsac. How did it get into Finsac? Only God knows. Because it's supposed to be Providence Society, you know. But it went to Finsac. Because all that they did was to sort to try to take somebody's land, and then the true owner came afterwards. So the good news is, I'm not going there. I'm not going there. We can, you know. We can, but I'm not sure you would enjoy it. Anyway, so the good news.
Mr. Speaker.
Members.
Mr. Speaker, I now ask that the standing orders be suspended to enable the minister to continue his speech, interesting speech, well-presented presentation to its conclusion, notwithstanding the time limit.
Members, the request is on the floor. Those in favor? Those against? The ayes have it. You may continue, member. Turn your mic. Turn your mic on, Minister. Turn your mics on.
Just for the benefit, therefore, Mr. Speaker, we were able to rescue those families, provided an upgraded development, kept the price, that's important, kept the price that they were given at the beginning, because it's tourism that was now taking charge of making sure that the benefits were flowing to, that the proceeds from tourism was going to the poor people. And so they know when you drive into Grange Pen, and we soon change the name because, Grange Gardens or something like that. We soon change the name because we can't play that game. We finish with the pen business. But what is important, Mr. Speaker, is that in addition to that, we bought 250 acres now of the green field, same Grange Gardens. And now the HAJ is working to get a joint venture arrangement to build 1,250 units for the workers of the tourism industry up there. So, Mr. Speaker, the final area that we looked at for our workers now. Having looked at training and developing capacity for upscaling with certification and competence, we then finally said, okay, how can we look at the same housing strategy, but now make it available? No, I didn't want that to go out so early, you know. Because you are good. That's why you're opposition spokesman and finance. At least you are numerate. So, what did you say? What did you say again? So, Mr. Speaker, for housing, we didn't stop there. The Prime Minister announced in his budget speech that there is a new strategy that we're going to be working with to enable very, very poor tourism workers who have no capacity to be able to build a house for themselves. But they have family who have a piece of land somewhere. Right? One day when you do as much, you will be regarded as such. No, but this is a very serious. This is a very serious policy piece. This is a very serious policy piece which we don't want to miss at all anyone. Because this strategy of reaching to the very poor tourism worker is one that had been tugging at me for a while, I must tell you. Because I go to see them work. And I recognize that some leave the palatial settings to hovels. And that can't be right. That's not the right picture. So we have put $500 million from the Tourism Enhancement Fund that the JHTA and the tourism partners, I just met with the last of the group on Friday last, have now agreed that they will come in and match so we can provide as much as 100 little houses for tourism workers of that nature in this financial year. In addition, 3,000 units are going to be provided by the hotel investors. And at another time I will mention them because it's worthy to do. Because it's a great example that is being set. The new one in Hanover is 500 units they will have for the workers right there in Green Island. And next door to them, an expansion is going to happen for 600 units again for workers in Hanover. We are looking at discussing now with a particular investor in St. Anne, which is going to be the biggest investment in the history of tourism in Jamaica. We'll talk about it a little later when certain other things are done. But what it promises to do is to build an entire village with fisherman facilities, with schools for the workers and for the community that they are going to be served. It's a new day that is dawning for tourism, Mr. Speaker. It's a day when ESG is now becoming a big part of the DNA of business. And we are saying to them, you are coming to invest in Jamaica, you are going to invest in community, you are going to invest in environment, and you are going to invest in governance. That's ESG. And they have walked the walk. And I'm expecting to see the full effect of that in short order. Mr. Speaker, the business of creating more opportunities for small and medium tourism enterprises has been at the heart of driving the process of inclusivity in the industry. And we have, by straight policy and vision and direction of this government, provided $1 billion Jamaican dollars to Exim Bank. And Exim Bank has been managing that, providing loans to small tourism enterprises over the last 3 years in particular since COVID, but it started a little before COVID. The result is that some $2.2 billion of loans have been dispersed to over 91 companies, small companies, ordinary small companies who are in the tourism industry. And some of them have graduated, and we don't want to call their names, but you buy their products, and you wear their products, and you travel with their products, some of them. And these are people who normally wouldn't be able to do it, because what we provided, Mr. Speaker, was a loan arrangement for $25 million max to be paid over 5 years, repaid over 5 years, at the lowest interest rate possible of 4.5%. And in that way, what we are saying to the small players, you have a chance. We go to Jamaica National, their small business window, and we put $200 million from the TEF for the little transport operator, the Juta man, the Jekyll man, the maxi taxi man, the little taxi man, that he could borrow up to $5 million and pay back at 3%. And when COVID came, we just forgave the interest and said, you don't pay anything until after. So we just want the point to be made that tourism under the Jamaica Labour Party government is for the little man. That's the point we want. And then we developed a 3-point strategy to enable the small enterprises to scale up. 1, to train, and train them. Secondly, to provide funding and financing at affordable rate for them. And thirdly, to provide marketing for them. And what was the offshoot of the marketing? Last week, we opened the first ever artisan village in Jamaica and the Caribbean. And it was wonderful to see the artisans there in situ, knitting away and carving away, and using coconut to make all kinds of fancy products. And others merchandising, and others will be having entertainment, and others will also be providing culinary delights of all types. This is not just to enable proper, sanitized merchandising and marketing, but it also is to create authenticity, is to enable the visitor to come and to have a piece of Jamaica that they can take back through the creativity of who we call the autochthonous artists and artisan, coming from their hearts. You haven't looked. You see the artisan village? You know what is interesting? What is interesting about that is that each year you get a book. And so watch next year's book. Madam Speaker, Mr. Speaker, the whole purpose of enabling this is really to change the picture, what I call the sociology of tourism, which is the pyramid. Where at the top of it is the big guys who own the airlines and the ships and so on and up there. And in the middle you have some people called travel tour operators and so on. And at the bottom is all the people who provide the real experience. No, we knew that she had to go. So we understand. She spoke to me before. And at the bottom is all these wonderful people who are the real owners of the experience of tourism. But they get very little. So what we're trying to change is a paradigm which shows that 80% of tourism experiences is owned by the liquor people, but they get only 20% of the return. So we have to find a way to rebalance that asymmetry, and to enable these smaller players to now be able to become owners, and not just owners now, but beneficiaries of their effort. And that's the strategy, the 3-point strategy that I spoke to you about. Training, development, give them a wider scope and scale so that they can create more and manage their business better. Secondly, to provide funding, credit that is affordable. And thirdly, to provide a market for them. The result of which, Madam Speaker, is that in terms of the marketing, even using technology, we are able to connect now our small players to the big markets of the world. I'm sure most of you know about the pudding man in Priory. Yes. You know, he's on our platform. And he gets sales from Switzerland. And he gets sales in the all-inclusive package. And I know that Adam won't mind my saying it. But sometimes Sanders is all $50,000 US check. The pudding man getting, because he is selling his products on the platform anywhere in the world. That's what we're talking about. But, Mr. Speaker, I really want to, there's so much to say, and I know that my colleague on the other side has to present, and I have a second bite of the cherry. So I take note of that. But I want to indicate that to drive tourism benefits to the ordinary people is not a talk. It's not a political game. It's not a wish. It's hard work and a lot of gray matter. And another place would say rigor. A lot of rigor that has to go into it. Now, that's what you hope you don't get to. If you follow your way, you might. But so we spend a lot of time on thought leadership and developing the vision and have what we call the sense of the longer view. So when, for example, we expend on certain things and people look at it and quarrel and say, my God, them spend so much on a sign. And they don't get the value of that sign as a marketing tool that today somebody tweeted, oh my God, and put out there that I go and there is no this here and there's no that. But guess what there is? There is the finest looking marker in the history of my experiences. And I could talk about Negril. Everybody wants to take a picture at Negril. I could talk about the Montego Bay sign at the airport. And I'm telling you, we are going to do some more marquee signature statements that identify community and do it in a dignified and aesthetically pleasing way that makes the country look good and more people want to come to us. It's the sense of the longer view. And when we talk about building capacity for gastronomy and for Jamaica's food to go to the world, just want to announce that the first ever Gastronomy Academy will be established at the Montego Bay Convention Center this year. And we are going to be training sous chefs there because we have the best kitchen in the Caribbean right there at the convention center. And it seemed almost a waste if you just save it for big meetings and conventions, when you can use it to upskill and upgrade your people to be able to have mobility and portability in the system. So we will be doing that. We are also going to be looking with our minister colleague on the building out of the promised Tourism Entertainment Academy. And this is very important because every industry has its peculiarities. And so your discipline may be broad and it covers everything. But my discipline is narrow and it only covers some things. And for you to be relevant and to be appropriate in your application, you must be trained and developed to manage the process that I have and to be able to deliver on what I require. And so we believe that there are qualified, top-notch producers in Jamaica. We don't have to reinvent the wheel. We don't have to go anywhere to bring faculty. We can utilize those who we have, and we end up with a virtual arrangement with practical application in a center that is created appropriately. And so we have had the designs done, and we will have our Entertainment Academy ready in short order. I'm going to close, Mr. Speaker, on this keynote because I know that the MPs who are here recognize that the program that we have developed for the constituencies, the Spruce Up on the Corner, has been a signature project. And all, you want more, I know. And every single member of Parliament, bar none, can say that there has been something from tourism that is in your communities. Every single one. You don't have to just say true. You can clap too, you know. So that well, we started the program, as you remember, before COVID, 2016, I think, yes. And then we had $3 million. And then after COVID, we recognized the pain and we went to $4 million. Well, I'm pleased to announce that this year, you will be $5 million for the school support. But I want to cut more ribbons. Yes. The member from St. Anne Southwest came to me with a lovely facility that he says, I'm ready for you to come and cut ribbon for that from Spruce Up. And you are waiting 2 years for that. And we went down to Trenchtown and did Trenchtown 1. And we did, where's the member from Member Burke? Just well, you see, you know why? You know why you get 5 million this year? You know why you get 5 million this year? Okay, because we're not in the country. If we stay in the country, you won't get any more. But the Spruce Up programs in the constituency is critical. And we don't want this to be for bushing. We don't want this to be even for road patching. We want this to be for sustainable projects that enable the little people in your constituency to be able to earn something as a result of involvement there, or to improve significantly the aesthetics of their communities, because that is what it's about. That sense of place that we want to inure is about people loving where they are. And to be able to love, I think, where's Phillip? He and I went to Omar, a Spruce Up one, which what he did was a set of murals on the walls on Windward Road against a community that you changed the name, right? Windward Court it is called. I don't want to tell them what it was called before. And this is one of the things that we are concerned about. Because changing attitudes is also about changing environment. If you have names of communities, and I'm not going to call some of the names, but you know what I mean. If you live at Bartlett Lane, not true. You want to be like Bartlett, right? That's what we say. We need to change those names, man. Place can name Vietnam. And jungle. I'm sorry. You know what I mean? Change the names. You understand what I mean? But more, yes, change the name. Of course, change the name. You can't name Backbush. Just like how we say can't name Grinch Pen. We don't want no pen. Pen is for animals. We're going to change the name. And then when you change the name, you change the aesthetics, you change the look and the feel, and you change the mind immediately. And the whole psyche of the people. And that is what Spruce Up on the corner is all about. It's enabling that transformation at that level. So, Mr. Speaker, I just want to say that the tourism industry and the tourism sector, visioned by this Andrew Holness administration, executed by one of the finest team of public servants that I could ever think of, led by Jennifer Griffin, right here, is determined to ensure that the benefits of the industry not filter down, but reaches everybody in the industry. So we are proud of what we have done, creating gross earnings last year of 4.38 billion, marking a notable 9.6 increase compared to fiscal year 22-23, doing more in 24. Stopover arrivals of 2.96, that will go to 3.2 million this year, doing more in 24. Cruise arrivals to reach 1.34 million, more in 24. New and increased flights from the United States, Canada, the UK, Latin America, more in 24. Visitor spending, with the average daily spend now, I didn't mention that earlier, but we were able to increase the spend from $170 US per head to $190 per head, which means more money is going into circulation in Jamaica when the visitor comes than before, so we could have more in 24. Complete 2,000 new rooms for this year. Next weekend, the 4th, we will open one with 750 rooms in Trelawney, Rio, yes. And later in the month of May, we will open one in Green Island with 1,000 rooms, Princess. And that will provide a new wave of some 1,500 new jobs. Not 1,500 jobs that have been poached. New jobs created for people. We have bought a new airport. A new airport in St. Mary. That is called, it's going to be Boscobel, don't worry. It's outrageous for the purposes of the market, but it will be Boscobel. That gives Jamaica now 3 airports. And the connectivity that Jamaica enjoys today is unprecedented in the region. Only Damrep has a higher level of air connectivity than Jamaica. But to the United States market, no other country has the connectivity that we have. We are connected with over 200 gateways. So almost anywhere in the United States that you go and you want to come to Jamaica, there's a way to connect through the hub and spoke system. Mr. Speaker, Airbnb, I didn't speak about that too much, but it is a new dynamic business model that is revolutionizing the accommodation subsector and is generating income and resources to the ordinary people across the length and breadth of Jamaica. Last year, 29% of all the visitors who came to Jamaica stayed in Airbnb facilities. They are in Trenchtown, they are in Octembedi, they are in Minnesota, they are in Drapers. You name the places all over Jamaica, they are. And the good news is that they spend 31 billion Jamaican dollars last year alone. Now, there's a discussion there, 31.8 to be exact, billion. And they spend 1.3 million guest nights. And that is providing more for the ordinary Jamaican in 24. The agro-linkages exchange platform for the small farmers, getting over $1 billion, we want to double that. And in my next presentation, I will speak about the supply side and the supply logistics hub, which I know you are interested in. Because there's a whole discussion as to how to really get strong benefits from tourism. Because it's not about the hotels. It's not about the airlines. That we call the demand side of tourism. It is the supply side of tourism where the wealth is, and that the ordinary Jamaican can be inserted in and become wealthy. And so we're going to talk a little more about that because we have a team under Wilfred Bagaloo, and we are putting together a strong team of suppliers now, purveyors, some big, because some names in Jamaica that supply tourism right now, you would never believe. Some people believe they work with some of the biggest companies in Jamaica, and it's tourism. Because over 30% of their revenue come directly from tourism. Ask Red Nephew, ask Red Stripe, ask Grace Kennedy, ask any one of these companies. Jamaica, especially Jamaica Broilers. And we can go on and on and on. So what we're saying is that the potential for Jamaica not only to be a supplier of the goods and services of the industry here, but also to be able to supply the demand of the region. And once we establish that logistics center, we can then nearshore from Jamaica to different parts of the region. And it is not just goods and services, but it's human capital. As we train logisticians, as we train procurement officers, as we train marketing personnel, as we train managers, and they can leave Jamaica and then go to other parts of the region to earn and make a living. So the cruise lines are interested in it. They are interested in doing more for Jamaica. The good news is that they want to work with us in building out a number of our ports. The Port Authority and myself, we went and had good discussions with them. They are looking at how to expand their footprints in Jamaica in more than one areas. More to be said, more to be said, more to be done, and more to be had. Madam, Mr. Speaker, I want us to recognize that the workers of our industry are at the heart of our concern, and that we are working to ensure a significant transformation in the labor market arrangements for tourism. We are going to be training, upskilling, utilizing technology, because the Internet of Things is going to redefine the experience of tourism in the future. And the workers of tourism in the future are going to have to be fully conversant with the cognitive systems. And so that's why we are expanding the Jamaica Center for Tourism Innovation and working closely with HEART, NTA, and the Ministry of Education. More for the workers in 24. In closing, I want to thank all the participants and players of the industry. Those who have given their last sweat, the last drop of their blood in some instances to make this industry what it is today. The strongest, fastest growing, and most consistent growth engine of the Jamaican economy. Only industry that has grown for 30 years consistently every year. But the beauty of that bird is that when it flies, it touches everyone. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I now ask you to invite the member for East Kingston and Port Royal and opposition spokesman on energy, climate change, I like that one, climate change, etc., to make his presentation.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I usually reserve my acknowledgement until the end of the presentation as I try to anticipate the clock. But please forgive me, Mr. Speaker, if I start by, though you had mentioned before, but she has arrived subsequent, the Doctor, the Honorable Una Clark, our first Caribbean Councilwoman, is now with us. The mother of the very impressive Congresswoman, Yvette Clark. She is, I think, 80% back home, and we are willing her the next 20% so she can finally return to her native land. Mr. Speaker, you'll also allow me, as he was not in the House last week, to acknowledge the presence of the member from Western Portland, a minister who I shadow and who I'll have to beat upon in a little while, but to acknowledge the passing of his mother and to say how deeply saddened we are, and we wish you well in this time. Mr. Speaker, I welcome this opportunity to once again address this Honourable House in this sectoral debate. This is my 27th year, having served 2 years before in another chamber. Not so bad. Not so bad. Not so bad. Mr. Speaker, as this debate commences today, I must posit that these are really not real debates, certainly not like the main debate, where views and positions are argued between government and opposition. And we have to look at how we conduct the sectoral debate. Because over the years, we on this side, we get very frustrated because we have put numerous criticisms of government policies, and we, at the same time, we proffer an equal number of positive recommendations, which have been largely ignored by the government. I propose that as we, Mr. Speaker, are now examining the standing orders, we use the opportunity to see how we can regulate the sectoral debate to make it far more meaningful and effective as a debate where ideas contend. And not when the leader of government business comes to speak again to glibly go over some of the very fine, if I may say so myself, recommendations that we have been putting forward year in, year in, without the requisite seriousness being given to it. Mr. Speaker, my portfolio has undergone some changes with the removal of mining and the addition of climate change. But I'm sure the leader and the new spokesman on mining won't mind if, when the time comes and rare earth elements become a commercial reality, that I share in some of that celebration, all right? There was a time, you know, Mr. Speaker, when we speak about rare earth elements, everybody would laugh in uproar and said, youthful exuberance again. It was not, yeah man, it was that. And now we see so many countries, in light of China's insistence on dominating this market and restricting export. And I say, praise to our Chinese friends, but Jamaica is the answer to that, and it's going to be done shortly. That's correct. So, Mr. Speaker, I don't have to reiterate in this House the importance of energy to our daily lives, whether as consumers or as businesses. We have been preoccupied, Mr. Speaker, and rightly so, with the issue of lack of growth in our economy. Indeed, both the leader of the opposition and the spokesman on finance spent an inordinate amount of time in their budget presentations on the failure of our economy to grow, and thus blighting any improvement in the quality of life and the standard of living of our people. Despite our lower level of unemployment, the vast majority of people are not seeing any prosperity. Yes, and we could change the video recording so that nobody mistakes me for the Minister of Tourism. So, Mr. Speaker, I'm saying that despite our lower level of unemployment, the vast majority of people are not seeing any prosperity. In fact, you infuriate people when you talk glibly of prosperity, because there can be no feeling of prosperity in the if our economy is not growing. So I think we need to pause on that for the time being. It has been a bitter experience for so many of our people. Mr. Speaker, our economy has not grown appreciably over many years. This lack of growth, or slow growth, has been linked to the poor performance of our energy sector over some decades. Energy is so crucial to all aspects of our lives, and it affects in a profound way the high cost of production and the resulting lack of growth. After some glowing and significant achievements in energy between 2012 and 2016, we are now witnessing reversals of that trend. Mr. Speaker, the World Economic Forum's Global Energy Architecture Performance Index recorded Jamaica's dramatic improvement between 2013 and 2017, moving 74 places from 166 in the world to 92. That improvement has slowed, even with the momentum of the previous period, by an improvement of only 6 places between 2017 and 2021. When I was minister, we had determined that a price of US 15 cents per kilowatt hour was a price that we should aspire to achieve if our economy were to become competitive and to grow. Today, this government has no notion of a benchmark price that it wants to attain. Mr. Speaker, I don't even believe that this government is aware of the price of electric energy at this time, because if they did, then there would be a greater sense of urgency to correct the situation. When we left government in 2016, the price per kilowatt hour of electricity came from 42 US cents to 23 US cents per kilowatt hour. Today, that price has escalated to about 40 cents, back to where we started. No wonder growth in the economy continues to elude us, and our people continue to suffer. Mr. Speaker, there are clear reasons why we are not achieving any success in this important and critical area of energy. The Ministry of Energy has been completely unstable and unfocused, and nothing much has been achieved or attempted since 2016. This lack of a sense of urgency has been typical of the government's approach to energy, and it has been to the disadvantage of our society. Take, for example, Mr. Speaker, the issue of the electricity law, which was House passed in 2015, when I was the minister. This law was passed to modernize the legal and regulatory framework for electricity that was over, at that time, 100 years old. It was clear at the time, Mr. Speaker, and to this Parliament, that the law was going to be transitional and would need a comprehensive review after 5 years to observe its implementation and to anticipate the upcoming expiration of the tenure of the main consumer and the only one to date who are paying back that capital cost for the establishment of the liquefaction for the regasification plant. The only consumers who pay are the JPS customers. There are other people who benefit, who purchase natural gas from the plant, but they don't contribute to that original cost of that infrastructure. That cannot be fair. That cannot be fair. And again, I ask for the OUR, for the ministry, to sort this matter out. I've been asking for that every year, and I again put it on the table. Let us be fair to our Jamaican consumers. Let us see to the reduction of the price of electricity. Mr. Speaker, Jamaica, by 2016, became the leading country in the English-speaking Caribbean in relation to renewable energy. We are no longer so. It was the case in 2016, where even Cuba, we are always stretching our hands to them for assistance. They came to Jamaica to try to understand what we were doing to achieve the growth in renewable energy. Many countries came and observed the Wigton wind farm and the tremendous use of technology to bring the price of electricity down. When I became minister, the only body in Jamaica that could introduce large-scale renewable projects was the PCJ. That monopoly was immediately terminated by me. As a result, we undertook the first large-scale procurement of renewable energy. That effort saw more than $300 million in new investments in wind, solar, and hydropower, bringing down the price of electricity to the grid. Even though we have seen a slight shift in the slumber of this government in this area, no new renewable projects have been introduced. Please remember also, in addition to the large-scale projects, we also introduced over 700 net billing licenses so that generators using renewable energy sources can attach to the grid. Our efforts were supported by removal of tariff barriers on solar panels and the provision of funds through the Development Bank of Jamaica and the National Housing Trust to consumers and businesses to retrofit their energy systems. Recently, and we are acknowledging this, the government stirred and caused a procurement process to commence for 100 megawatts of capacity. My information, Minister, is that all the bids came in at or below 10 US cents per kilowatt hour, all the bids. Can you imagine if the government had done this earlier, where the price of electricity could have been today? And why didn't the government go for the over 200 megawatts as was pledged? And, Mr. Speaker, what about the early announcements by the government of the establishment of a committee looking at waste-to-energy projects? Nothing but silence on that issue. I wish to remind this House that when we developed the Wigton wind farm, we were able to earn carbon credits, cash, because of the displacement of carbon dioxide, which came about from the production of fossil fuel. We were able to earn large sums of money in that first phase, and at the proposals that were placed on the table to deploy between 3 kilowatts and 5 kilowatt solar systems, along with batteries in these communities where the theft of electricity has overwhelmed the capacity of the JPSCO and the police to contain. It would be a winning solution to everyone, as the poor will have access to this necessity. The consumers will get a 17% price break, and carbon credits can be earned from this increased use of renewable energy. Time come, time come, time come. Mr. Speaker, Petrojam continues to limp along under this government. There is no clear vision as to the future role of this organization that has served our country for over 30 years. We believe the issue of Petrojam requires urgent attention. Remember the justifications for Petrojam? It has been a significant manufacturer, adding value and creating high-quality jobs in the economy. It has been an earner of foreign exchange from its exports, and it saves the country a huge amount of foreign exchange from its import substitution activities. The country has never been out of fuel over these decades because of Petrojam. And there is now an emergent shortage of refinery capacity in our region. Mr. Speaker, about 5 years ago, the government established a committee chaired by Mr. Christopher Zaka to consider and to make recommendations for the future of Petrojam. A report was tabled, but in keeping with this government's high level of inaction, that report, 5 years later, is still awaiting a cabinet decision. This is unacceptable. This is unacceptable. I would again call for the Zaka report to be referred to the Energy Council for their views. And then for the Economy and Production Committee of Parliament to consider the recommendation. Jamaica's energy security is far too important for Petrojam to be treated in this feeble manner. It is a dishonor to an embarrassment to the hard-working and professional staff of this institution to be treated this way. Mr. Speaker, as I close on this area of energy, this vital area, I will repeat some additional policy positions of a future PNP government, as the leader of the opposition highlighted in his own budget presentation. One, we will roll out a national energy efficiency program. This will incorporate natural lighting and passive cooling dimensions. This will be financed, and it is well thought out, by local, regional, and international development banks and private risk capital. The objective is to achieve an average 50% reduction in residential energy consumption and costs with a 2-year payback. I think we have forgotten the importance of energy conservation. We will also, Mr. Speaker, prioritize achieving our renewable energy target of at least 30% by 2030. And also, Mr. Speaker, again coming from the leader of the opposition, we will review the tax system affecting the energy sector to ensure that it incentivizes the investments in efficiency and cost-reducing replacements and expansion of the sector, in keeping with our policy to prioritize the reduction of Jamaica's carbon footprint. And again, as I close on this area, Minister, I really want us to engage in an active debate so that we can move forward with some of these proposals so that our people can see lower prices of energy. And I really wish also that the ministry will be able to state in explicit terms where you want to see the price of electric energy. I believe 15 cents per kilowatt hour is manageable and it is attainable. I move away from you to climate change, which is a new era for me. Mr. Speaker, thanks to the visionary leadership of our former Prime Minister, the Most Honorable Portia Simpson Miller, who created the first Ministry of Climate Change. And at this time, as we do always, we remember Sister P with love and affection. But because of that, Jamaica is well placed in a future PNP administration.
Mr. Speaker, the member's time having been expired, I beg to move that it be extended sufficiently for him to conclude his presentation. May it please you, Mr. Speaker.
As the request is on the floor, those in favor? Those against? Ayes have it. You may continue.
So, Mr. Speaker, because of that leadership of the former Prime Minister, Jamaica is well placed with a new Prime Minister to come. To restart and to give greater energy to more coordinated action to the myriads of climate change mitigation and adaptation initiatives that need urgent attention. The truth is, Mr. Speaker, the issue of climate change continues to be one that is dominated by an international perspective and efforts usually ushered in by senior political leadership. Jamaica has not been seen to continue its international leadership in this regard, certainly not after those heated days when Sister P and Bobby Pickersgill led Jamaica's global articulation. We have lost much of our appeal and influence. Others in our region have overtaken us in terms of the leadership of climate change issues. Our vision statement of 2015 is as relevant now as it was then. What is that vision statement? Jamaica achieves its goals of growth and prosperity for its people while meeting the challenges of climate change as a country with enhanced resilience and capacity to adapt to the impacts and to mitigate the causes in a coordinated, effective, and a sustainable manner. It was clear to the world, Mr. Speaker, from before the turn of this century that climate change was taking place at an accelerated rate due to human activities, especially those related to the use of fossil fuels and land clearing, exacerbated by population growth. This level of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere continues to rise, and despite the tremendous recent efforts to get the entire international community to respond positively, our world remains in danger of cataclysmic impacts due to continuing climate change realities. We know that Jamaica, like so many small island developing states, is particularly vulnerable to the effects of climate change, not only in terms of our natural resources, but also our social well-being and our economic development, as sectors such as tourism, agriculture, fisheries, forestry, and water are very climate sensitive. Mr. Speaker, we have witnessed the damaging consequences of climate change in Jamaica already, and as soon as we return to office, we'll have to amalgamate all the various projects in a much more coordinated and focused way within the national budget. We have to ensure that the division in the ministry is properly structured, staffed, and resourced, and that we embark on that we embark on a sustained public education program aimed at all levels of the population and sectors of the economy. We must move from a tagline to a mindset so that our people will fully understand that we are facing real dangers that will have far-reaching consequences on things we take for granted. Mr. Speaker, I am unimpressed with the outcomes so far of the various climate change projects in the ministry, and I'll touch on a few of them. One, we are supposed to increase emission sequestration from the forestry sector. We have not yet, in relation to this project, seen a single divestment, especially in that area dealing with mangrove segment. This has been delayed, and we're asking the question, what has happened to this element of the project? Two, reduce system losses in electricity transmission and distribution. No success here. Three, a switch from fuel oil to LNG at the energy plant at Alpart Refinery. Well, that plant has been closed for the last few years. Four, improve alumina refinery energy efficiency to 90% by 2030. Nothing has been achieved here. By 2030, Jamaica should have 291 megawatts new solar PV capacity. That has not been achieved. Not one single megawatt has been installed already. As yet, electricity savings of 19,800 megawatt hours by 2030, implementation of that is yet to commence. I can go down the list. Every single one of these projects are either delayed or not started at all. And this again represents a high level of inaction on the part of the government to an area that is critical if we're going to survive. So, Mr. Speaker, I think, again in this area, time come. Time come.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
Mr. Speaker, I'm aware that there is now an extensive investigation being pursued by the Auditor General's Department in the ministry and all the projects. So I await the conclusion of that investigation by the Auditor General, at which time I will respond further. I'm hoping, though, that when that investigation is completed by the Auditor General, there will be no delay in tabling it in this Parliament. Mr. Speaker, just a few comments on my role as Leader of Opposition Business in Parliament. As Leader of Opposition Business, I welcome the opportunity to welcome our new Clerk of the House and to pledge my side's full and respectful support in her new and important assignment. I also welcome the opportunity to be a part of the committee to undertake a comprehensive review of the Standing Orders Committee. I do hope that that exercise, the one to review our standing orders, will be vigorously pursued and will be conducted in the highest spirit of compromise and reasonableness. I think as chairman, the speaker that is, you will have a tremendous responsibility to ensure that the experience and understanding of the committee members, especially those older ones, be fully utilized without too much regard for which side of the aisle they come. Now is not a time for the wielding of the power of the majority, but rather to allow good governance and nation building to take center stage. If the Speaker were here, I would have said to her, Madam Speaker, your role as Speaker has undergone some scrutiny in recent times, and rightly so. As Speaker, you are the impartial, disinterested, fair, even-handed, and reasonable arbiter of the proceedings in this arena. That is a most crucial role and function. It is significant to note that it is in only one respect that the Speaker is really to take part in any active proceedings on this floor. Though no Speaker has exercised the option, the Speaker is only able to participate in a single presentation in the constituency debate. Otherwise, the Speaker's role is to ensure the orderly conduct of the House. You have asked, and I am speaking directly to our Speaker, that the standing orders be reviewed to provide you with guidance as to the tabling of reports from the Auditor General and the Integrity Commission. With respect, Mr. Speaker, through you, the rules that currently exist are quite fine and must not be adjusted in any way. What we need adjusted, what we need to be adjusted and properly enshrined in our standing orders is that the chairmanship of the several oversight committees should be put back in the hands of the opposition. And we must better define the relationship between the Speaker and the administrative staff of the Parliament. Needless to say, I will again call upon the Speaker to withdraw that egregious letter that was sent to the former clerk. That was sent to the former clerk, along with an appropriate apology. I believe this matter will dog the Speaker for the rest of her term if she doesn't do the right thing and restore equilibrium and working relationship with this honorable House. In my 27th presentation, I recommended that in addition to the Prime Minister and Leader of the Opposition, both the Leader of Government Business and the Leader of Opposition Business should also make our statutory filings and Integrity Commission subject to public scrutiny. I hope we can agree to that. I did make the initial move in 2017 by publishing my entire, up to that time, 19 years of filings. And I believe that it is good practice. It will be good to add to what the leaders are doing if we as the parliamentary leaders do similar. Mr. Speaker, I will now do my acknowledgements. First of all, I want to thank the Leader of the Opposition for the continued confidence in me and for the effective leadership of this team. We are 14, but we are very effective inside here. I would like to thank my colleagues in our party, but also to all members of this House for the cordial relationship that we continue to share. And Mr. Speaker, earlier the Leader of Government Business acknowledged it, but I want to also single out the former Leader of the Opposition, who has now served this Parliament for 30 years. And we want to wish him good health and strength as he continues. I want to say thanks to my two councillors. We again retain our two divisions, along with the executive body for the great constituency of Kingston, East and Port Royal, chaired by a woman. And I have two female councillors. They run things in my constituency. I want to acknowledge, Mr. Speaker, a new addition to the team. We now have a deputy spokesman in the mayor of the great city of Mandeville, and he's here with us, Donovan Mitchell. I thought he would come today to be inspired to do the work that he has to do in central Manchester. I also...
You have to pay the first $1 million first.
I also, Mr. Speaker, want to acknowledge the junior spokesperson on energy and climate change, Mr. Sajay Palmer, who is also here in the House. As a deputy and a junior, we are training them to take over. Yes, yes. Yes, proudly so. Mr. Speaker, let me also
Generations to come.
thank
18 years.
Let me also thank the chairman of my task force, Mr. Hugh Campbell, and the team that assist me, and of course my personal staff at my law firm, my staff at the constituency office, my driver and security. I want to thank my constituents. I never knew we had so many prayer warriors in East Kingston and Port Royal, and indeed across Jamaica. I want to thank you so much for all the prayers that they continue to send up for me. And of course, I want to thank my family and all my friends who have stood by me, especially in these difficult times. My family from St. Thomas. I was born in St. Thomas, and I do serious political work there now as we try to regain our 2 seats in that great parish. And it shall be done. Mr. Speaker, in concluding my presentation to this Honourable House, I recommit the following desirable and actionable items. We have to return the country to a path to attain 15% per kilowatt hour for electricity. We have to embrace the provision of solar systems to those in our society who steal so that the paying consumers can benefit. We have to table the regulations for the importation, distribution, and use of LNG in Jamaica. And we have to start the negotiations with the JPSCO in respect of their license. Let's use energy to kickstart the road to greater economic growth. We also have to update the nation on the cabinet decision, or lack thereof, on the ZACA Petrojam report. To ignore such an important cog in the nation's energy security is a neglect of our duty and an irresponsible behavior. We have to put greater urgency and priority to the pressing matter of climate change. We have to restore Jamaica to its leading position and role within the region in respect of climate change issues. To do anything less will lead to our own peril and to leave future generations to suffer because of our avoidable failings. Serving in this Honourable House, Mr. Speaker, is both a privilege and a significant responsibility. The nation watches and sees what we do, and they do so whenever we are here. We can either be a positive beacon of good example or a negative role model to our citizens. Let's put aside our partisan bickering and work to get the work of the Standing Orders Review Committee to significantly improve how we conduct the business of the nation. To do anything less, we would have failed the people who sent us here and, of course, the generations to follow. Despite our warts, Mr. Speaker, we are still a great nation, and our best days are still ahead of us. May God continue to bless Jamaica, land we love. Thank you very much.
Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker, I'd just like to, on behalf of all of us in this House, commend the member for a wide-ranging but very valuable presentation as we start this very important aspect of the business of this Honourable House. We take well some of the points he made, and I think they will form part of discussions in later arrangements that we will have with the committee, particularly the Standing Orders Committee. I beg to move, therefore, Mr. Speaker, that this debate be suspended until Tuesday, the 7th of May at 2 p.m., when the speakers will be the Deputy Prime Minister and the Minister of Health. May it please you, Mr. Speaker.
The question is on the floor. Those in favor? Those against? The ayes have it.
Mr. Speaker, it is not intended to do any further business today. I therefore move that the House be adjourned until Tuesday, May 7 at 2 p.m. at the George William Gordon House. May it please you, Mr. Speaker.
The request is on the floor. Those in favor? Those against? The ayes have it. This House now stand adjourned.